Hello and thank you for joining me today. Today I am sharing a mixed media layout created with Blue Fern Studio's new collection, Tattered Walls. I started this layout by layering some papers up and just ripping one page in half and applying it to the second. As you can see here, I'm just going to play with it a little bit until I'm happy with it. But then you're going to just see me go through this process, and I didn't really delete very much out of this video, so you're going to see a lot of things that don't quite make it to the page, like this piece of chipboard for instance. However, I am fussy cutting one of the roses out of the page that I ripped up, just because I really liked it and I wanted to make sure that it did make it to the page. So it does seem kind of tedious, but it is a really easy way to add a lot back into your layouts by just cutting little pieces out that you do like. Again, I'm not really sure where any of this is going right now. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to use on the page. I'm trimming my photo down to try and make it fit in this chipboard that I still think I'm going to use, and I never use it. But as for the Love chipboard, that's actually part of Love This Moment chipboard, and I used the This Moment in the other layout that I created for this month. But again, you can see I'm really just trying to figure out what I'm doing and what I want on this paper and what I don't want on this paper. You're going to see me playing with the new little embellishment packs that come with this collection. And I'm just pulling out bits and pieces that I think that I might use, and I'm picking up different chipboards, and now I'm cutting out random squares from my leftover pages that I tore. At this point, really, I have no idea where I'm going with this layout, so please bear with me. I really just didn't want to cut this out of the video because sometimes I think that we cut and edit the videos out so much that you never really see the process that we go through, and you think that it just comes together in a quick snap. And a lot of times it is a bunch of trial and error and different layers and different placement, and we rip it off and start over again. So I just wanted to show that process a little bit. But here you can see that I'm moving on and I'm distressing all the edges to the edges of the pages that I have cut into little squares, and that's just to rough it up a little bit, give it a different look, and I'm just going to start building my cluster. And here you can see I'm just playing with the different pieces until I'm happy with it, just to make my focal point a little bit, give it a little depth. A lot of times I'll ink the edges, but for this layout I really wanted it to stay light and airy, so I didn't want to add any extra ink to it. So I didn't do any random stamping, and I didn't do any inking on my distressed edges. Once I'm happy with my cluster, you can see that I just add a couple staples to hold it in place, and now you're going to see me start to adhere this down. One of the new embellishments packs, a little bit from the new embellishment pack, I'm sorry. Some fun little banners from the same pack. The cutout roses that I fussy cut out of the page. Picture placement. This is also a piece of a frame from the prior layout. A lot of times I cut my chipboards up, and that's just so I can stretch them a little bit, and if it's going to be underneath something, I don't see why waste it. But here I'm just adding a little bit of green paint to it, and I could have embossed that, but honestly I wanted a little bit more of a darker gold tone to it, and this paint was just perfect for it. This banner I do cut, as you can see, because why waste the friend part? So while it's starting to come together, I'm really still not sure where exactly I'm going, but I'm starting to move ahead. So here I'm continuing to paint this chipboard with the same green paint, and I'm going to actually cut this chipboard into 3 different pieces to make it go a little bit further, because honestly to me it was kind of a strange shape for this layout, but I did like the more flourishes in it. So you'll see me cut it in just a second. And I'm just going to continue to move these around the page until I'm happy with them, and then I'll start adding in some flowers, and I'm going to build up my cluster. And this does take quite some time, so I do skip some of this out because I actually walked away at one point in time because I just couldn't figure out where I wanted the placement of the flowers. Honestly, I probably spend the most time on that. But now you can see that I'm starting to adhere my flowers down, and I've added just a couple little white roses from my stash just to kind of balance it out, because all of these flowers seem to be about the same size, and I like to mix in a couple that are smaller. So I'm just going to continue to build my cluster, and you can see me do that here. Once I have all my flowers in place, I'm just going to go ahead and add just a tiny bit of color to the layout. So I'm adding just a little bit of mist using a paintbrush, just because I wanted to add a little bit more pink to the layout, and then I go ahead and add some pearl paint on top of that. But it's just a couple touches, it's nothing too dramatic. I'm not really changing the paper in any way. A little bit of paint, some paint on the roses, just some accents. Those tiny little white roses, I like to add a little bit of paint to the tops of them. Before I add my splatters to the page, I'm just adding a little bit of gel medium around the page so I can add my seedlings. For this layout I used Meadow, which is a light green, Mauve, which is a metallic pink kind of color, and then I added a little bit of rose gold glitter. Well, that was a tongue twister today. But here you can see I'm adding the seedlings just to the little places that I added my gel medium, and I like to do that just around the page a little bit here and there in the clusters, and then of course in the flowers. And there's the rose gold glitter, and then you'll see me go back with the Meadow after I shake it off a little bit, just because I decided that I wanted to add a little bit of green as well. And you can see that's just a really light kind of green. Now I'm going to add my splatters, and that's just a bit of paint with water and a fan brush. And that is an opal color paint, and then I'm going to add a gold as well. The gold I do go ahead and add a little bit to the flowers as well. Again, I just like to add little touches of the paint to the flowers, and it just seems to make them coordinate a little bit better for me, just my personal preference. Now I'm going to place my picture and add that pink rose back into place. And I'm just adding a little bit of twine because my focal point seems to drag a little bit lower, and I wanted to add something to bring it back up. And it just seemed to balance it out a little bit more. Now I'm just embossing my title, which is again a piece of a chipboard that says love this moment, and then this is just the love portion of it, and I'm embossing it using a Versamark stamp and some antique gold from Blue Fern Studio. With my title in place, that completes my layout. Just here you can see a little bit of it. So thank you so much for joining me this month. I hope that you enjoyed my process, and if you did, please leave me a thumbs up, and if you have any questions, please list them below and I will try to get back to them as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and you have a great day. Bye-bye.